And welcome back to next new who would win. So a strange little fact about the piece of art or the thumbnail for this video. I actually made that myself, believe it or not more than 5 minutes ago. That's my first attempt at actually trying to make something composited into an image. And for what it's worth, the quality came out fairly okay for what I was looking for. Granted, the font for the word verse is a little small, and I couldn't figure out a way to make it bigger without making a very tacky verses in crayon or marker writing. But let's work with what we got. It makes me feel happy. It's actually an achievement for me because my tech skills are almost nigh-existent. So yeah, but you're not here to listen to me talk about my brilliant technologically artistic capabilities. Now you're here to listen to who I picked to kick the crap out of each other this week. And this week is Daredevil versus Riddick from the Pitch Black Chronicles of Riddick series in Daredevil Marvel. No, excuse me. Now, I brought this. I'm doing this one as an actual request from a friend of mine. He requested that we do a versus video on these two characters, and by we I mean me, because Mark has yet to get involved in this series yet. And to be fair, I can see why he would have suggested it. They're both guys who have technically vision-based abilities. Riddick's abilities are very vision-based, and he sees in the dark, and Daredevil's blind but can see in the dark location, has radar sense, all that. So I guess you could see where these two would fight each other. So brief little quick synopsis of how these work, by the way, because I don't think I've ever explained how a who to win actually works. The way the who wins actually work is obviously it's a versus. But the way I do the versus is not necessarily neutral ground, anything like that. It's what is the most realistic scenario these two characters we're pitting against would fight each other. Because if you want to talk about neutral ground, that's one thing entirely. But if you're talking about, let's just assume these characters are in the same universe, hence neutral ground. But what's the most realistic scenario in which these two face off? Like when I did Batman vs. Superman, the most realistic scenario these two would face off is Batman calling Superman out, or vice versa, and them meeting to fight. That's the most realistic scenario I can imagine for that. Same with the Hellboy vs. Ghost Rider. Hellboy hears about Ghost Rider, goes to confront Ghost Rider. That's how that fight, I think, goes down. So that's how these fights go down. Now, going into our combatants. So let's start with Daredevil. Daredevil's the one whose lists of abilities are far more, relevant and calculated and categorized. And I really need to slow down because it is like 2:30 in the morning. So I'm going to just try to slow my roll just a little bit here so I'm not running over words. So just going off of Daredevil. Now, Daredevil, as we all know, also known as Matt Murdock, by the way, his main ability, he was blinded by a chemical at a young age. And that basically robbed him of sight. He's blind. However, it increased his other senses, smell, touch, taste, hearing to superhuman levels. To the point where his things like hearing and touch can give him an echolocation radar sense of a sense. He can more or less, and that's one of the things that Daredevil, the movie, actually kind of caught on to. I have not watched the TV series yet, but what Daredevil, the movie, kind of did in a more proper way is that, he hears a sound, and the sound echoes off, bounces off walls. He gets kind of a 3D image in his brain of what's going around and what the scenario looks like. So he's got extremely high senses that allow him that. He's got a perfect sense of balance because of it. His inner ear is extremely strengthened for his equilibrium. He's got peak human athleticism in terms of agility and reflexes. He can react. He can dodge bullets. He can, he's good parkour the whole, city tops as he likes to do. And he's also Olympic level, or I write this part down, Olympic level strength and speed. Now, he's not peak human, but he's Olympic level. That's still fairly impressive, because, that means, he can probably lift a good couple 100 pounds. He can, fight extremely fast in close quarter combat. He's taking down characters like Wolverine. I think he's fought Deadpool occasionally. He can go toe-to-toe with Iron Fist, Captain America, all of them. So he's got that going for him as well. Now, his senses are heightened to, superhuman levels. His sense of hearing, he can hear a person's heartbeat and can even use that as a lie detector. his sense of touch is so sensitive that he can actually feel writing on paper through the ink. And not through lamination, but the ink. His smell, he can track someone by scent. They don't really say anything specific about his taste. I'm assuming he could taste like if something were poisoned. So there's that. And he's overall physically, he's a skilled individual, despite his disadvantages of his blindness, which really, at this point, is no longer a disadvantage, because he can just, he can compensate with that. Now, his fighting skills are, he's definitely one of the more skilled martial artists in the Marvel Universe. He's skilled in, and almost a master in, ninjutsu, which is blending in, obviously. Is it Aikido? I know he's got Aikido, but then he's Akijutsu or Akijutsu. It's a different type, like a form of Aikido. Jujutsu, Kung Fu, Capoeira, which is a dance. It's a Brazilian dance fighting, I believe. Judo, wrestling, stick fighting, because he fights with a stick. He learned from a martial arts called stick, and yeah, I've got my notes here. So you know what? I'll just keep this on screen. So notes. And boxing, and he's a skilled gymnast, yeah, as you've seen from his leaping around. Now, he learned his martial arts training from a man called The Stick, or Stick, I can't remember if it was The Stick or Stick. Point being, he learned him from that guy, who was also blind, but a skilled martial artist, can handle himself and all that. So not all of he knows, but he adapted what he knew, plus the training, into that, making him extremely fierce opponent. And because of that, he's one of the most skilled martial artists in the Marvel Universe. And he's not just a martial artist; he's also a fairly proficient weapons expert, particularly with his fighting stick, which is basically it's a baton, more or less, which you see kind of in. They show it in the movie, and I know I reference the movie, and a lot of people don't like the movie, but despite what you may think, they did get a decent amount of what the character kind of is right in the movie, just in terms of what his equipment is and how his powers kind of work. So, its baton is roughly about, it's about the size of my forearm, but they didn't actually give a length for it, but it's basically got a 30-foot aircraft control cable connected to the core that's perfectly wound and can perfectly unwind and rewind and all that stuff, so it's like shoot out, retract perfectly. And it's got a iron cast steel grappling hook in there, which he uses basically, I'm Batman, woo! If I were poor on the street in Hell's Kitchen, woo! And it can split into two parts. One, it can split into the carved hook part, or it can also just be straightened for throwing. It can be used like a billy club. It can be used almost like a nunchuck. It's a very versatile weapon, and Daredevil is extremely skilled with it. So he is an extremely skilled weapons user in that regard. Now, I don't think they ever shown him using guns, but I would assume, given his abilities, he could probably use a gun, provided that his weaknesses didn't get in the way of that, because he is extremely. His senses are a double-edged sword, more or less. He's extremely weak to loud noises. In fact, loud enough noises will disorientate him and kind of stun him. Same with the very bad, pungent smells. And he's not perfect. He can be killed just like anyone else. He's just a mortal man, but he's a very physically proficient and physically fit mortal man. And not only that, he's an intelligent individual. He's a lawyer. He's very educated in the penal system, but he's also got a very kind of clear-cut way of how he sees the world. So, yeah, he's Daredevil is a skilled guy. He's a skilled dude. Now, granted, he's got, again, several exploitable weaknesses. Particularly his sensors can be overloaded, more or less. That's why I say guns might not necessarily be why he's his gun. Because a gun that close to you, that's literally not more than maybe 2 feet away. Not even really. And that thing going up, boom, with that your ears, oh man, that could really mess you up. So, let's go down to our guy and see if he'll mess up Daredevil in this fight. So, we have Jason B. Riddick, who was played by Vin Diesel in the Riddicks and Prince Black movies. Now, he's born on the planet Furyan. Now, we don't know much about the Furyan race, but we do know they were basically they weren't necessarily a pure warrior race, but they were definitely more of a fighting race. And they were nearly all wiped out by the necromongers. He was found strangled with his umbilical cord wrapped around his neck, but he survived. So he spent most of his life getting educated in the penal system. He was basically kind of a troubled kid. Troubled kid with a troubled past. But he basically, one of the ways he kind of coped with that, he was went into the military, and he became he became an extremely proficient pilot. He's an extremely good pilot. He's also extremely intelligent from his days in the military. He actually found out that basically the branch of the military he was working for was corrupt. He tried to get them to stop, expose them, and it didn't work, so he was sentenced to prison. And that's where the Riddick we knew was kind of born, or we know that he was kind of born because he escaped, killed guards, and that's kind of how he goes. He started just taking lives. And at some point, he got his eye shine, which is one of his most famous traits. He allows him basically to see perfectly in pitch darkness. That it doesn't even need light. It's like perfect night vision. Whereas some night vision actually utilizes what light there is. He can see in complete pitch black, as the movie said. He sees in kind of like a violet, ultraviolet, purple spectrum. The downside of this is it makes him very sensitive to bright light. That can like just overload his senses and just blind him, and it's very painful. I can imagine that. I have sensitive eyes too, but nowhere near that level. So he's got that going for him, absolutely. Now he can see in low level light. Like he can take off his goggles and be like, he could be in this room right now and actually be okay. But if it's like bright sunlight, that's not going to work for him. Now, I mentioned that he's extremely intelligent. He's also extremely ruthless when he has to be. Because the thing about Riddick is a lot of times when people evaluate him, like therapists and, doctors and basically anyone who comes across, they always depict him as like a sociopathic, psychotic, violent killer. And he is a little bit, but he's been more described even by himself, his own volition, as kind of an animal. He's more of an animal than just like a savage or anything like that. He's a guy almost of instinct. He's an extremely proficient survivalist. If you've watched the Pitch Black movies, this guy has survived stuff most people wouldn't even dare dream of. He survived a plane crash, and we're talking about movies. This is not even including his history beforehand. We saw him survive a plane crash. He dislocated his freaking arms to escape. He's got an extremely high pain threshold when he does that. When he took a dagger, I think, when he got bit by one of the, I think they call them the night creatures or something like that in the first movie, when he got bit by them. And the second one, he actually gets the crap kicked out of it by the Lord Marshal, but he keeps getting back up. What was it? The Dark Fury animated movie gets shot, and you can see in it he's just, chilling out a little later. And then the fourth Riddick movie, my God, his leg's broken. He kind of fixes that up a little bit and just keeps working with that. He takes like 4 horse tranquilizers and still doesn't get knocked out. He has to be knocked out with a gun butt. He then gets the crap kicked out of him, and then he's still mocking people. And then he gets stabbed by one of the, as they call them, the serpents. And then there's some scalding rock, and he takes a palmful of sand, picks up the scalding rock, and then cauterizes his wound. The man's pain tolerance and threshold and willpower are off the charts, people. And that just goes into the fact that he is a survivor. He is just someone who will keep going and fight to the bitter end to keep alive and stay alive. And that goes along with his rage. His rage has come out more than one time. In fact, he utilizes his rage far more effectively than some other, characters who have, anger problems, who aren't focusing do. It's very, it's very intense because anytime that's the best way to put it. Anytime you basically hear that primal almost yell that Vin Diesel will do, like, "Aah!" And you hear that, it's like, holy crap, he's going balls out right now, man. He's not going down without a fight. So Riddick's a tough son of a bitch in that regard. He's also basically near superhuman levels of strength. He's probably beyond peak, almost peak human condition in certain regards. Particularly stamina, durability. He's a very durable guy. He's going to last a very long time with his stamina. He's a physically imposing man. He's physically far stronger than most average people. I mean, he might be a little slower, but he's surprisingly agile. I mean, I wouldn't call him he's not a speed racer, so he's like, no, he's not like that, but he's very quick on his feet and agile and stealthy. This man knows how to sneak and stealth you. This man will, as he put it, ghost him. He'll ghost you, motherfucker. Riddick knows how to just blend in and disappear when he wants to. And despite all that rage and animalistic instinct, because that's what it is, there's a lot of instinct that goes in there, he's an extremely intelligent man, too. As he said, he's educated very well in the penal system. He was in the military. He's a very good judge of character. He can read people and find a weakness in people fairly easy, and then exploit that weakness. So he knows how to take advantage of a situation and make it his own. He's a very adaptable guy. Hence, again, going back to the fact that he is a survivor. And then you have to break down what his equipment is. Now, Riddick doesn't normally have any real set base of equipment that he holds on to him, but he's been known. What's the best way to put this? He can use basically anything as a weapon. He has shown that he can literally use anything as a weapon. He can use guns, he can use blades, he can use chains, he can use a teacup, or he can even use a key or a rock. But the thing he's been shown most proficient at using is blades. Blades are his forte, and he is skilled as hell using them. He has he's not a bad hand-to-hand combat fighter either. I mean, he literally took on one of those aliens in pitch black by himself with nothing more than his bare hands and a shiv that he made from just a piece of metal and killed it himself with little difficulty. Just cracked his neck. His fighting style is nowhere near as varied as Daredevil is, but he's got a few techniques, fighting styles mixed in that Daredevil doesn't actually have. He knows how to fight, like stick fighting is, Krav Maga, which involves a lot of, Krav Maga involves a lot of self-defense, neutralizing your opponent, and basically counteracting and then reacting. He's also got ninjutsu, as you can tell by the sneaking and stealth. And now there's one called Hapkido, which is essentially a lot of grappling and weapons usage. And then there's this one I want to be sure I get right, Eskrima, which is again another weapon-oriented martial art. And if you've ever watched him fighting, he can take down multiple men in a single minute. He doesn't need time. He doesn't need any time to take these guys out. And then the last thing I want to get on. Well, I should also mention that in this scenario, he's been he's famous for actually using, I believe they're called ulak. I may be getting that name wrong, but ulak blades. Now those are the curved blades you see in Chronicles of Riddick. Now that's the only time we see him using them, but a lot of people have basically made those synonymous with the character. So for this particular fight, we're going to say that he arrives in the scene with just maybe actually because he always has a blade on him. Let's be clear about that. He's always got some sort of blade on him, and you'll have to forgive me for laughing at that because Fred Ward has just showed up in the most ridiculous outfit ever. Star Trek 6 is on in the background. Not a bad movie, but this is, oh my god, the ridiculousness of that. That you a man fool. Oh man. Anyway, back to the video. So we're gonna say he has those on him. Now, the one other thing I want to get into right now is Furyan's wrath. Now, the Furyan wrath we see only once, and it's that scene where that I can't remember her name. She has a name. I can't remember what it was. That woman you see kind of puts her hand on Vin Diesel, and you see that glowing hand mark. Is assigned the Alpha Furyan, and then this energy wave comes out. I don't know if he can do that in any other circumstance. So we're gonna call it a one-off for this. I can't use that if it hasn't been used at least twice, and he's been shown to be able to use it himself. If he uses it one other time at all in any other form of media, then I can use it in a video, and that could change the whole thing up. But until then, I can't use it. So that's it. So we got our combatants. We got their list of abilities. So the most realistic scenario I see in this happening is that Riddick is hiding out on Earth. And he just so happens to choose New York City. And he's going about his business. And then maybe some bounty hunter shows up. And he has to get involved and kill the bounty hunter. And that catches the attention of Daredevil. So the way this fight goes is that Daredevil comes in. Riddick maybe tells him, leave me alone or something like that. It's like, don't do this. And Daredevil's just like, I'm going to have to come at you. So that fight breaks out. So I'm imagining Daredevil's probably going to use maybe his baton maybe to throw Riddick off. Just fire it at him. Riddick's probably going to dodge it. And, Riddick's maybe going to make a run for it. Daredevil will be hot on his heels. Now, the problem with Riddick's actually going to have is that his darkness is not going to matter with Daredevil. Darkness does not matter to Daredevil at all. He can't stealth Daredevil. Even Batman couldn't stealth Daredevil. Now, granted, Batman could easily take on Daredevil when that crossover happened, but he cannot stealth Daredevil. Daredevil will be able to hear his heartbeat. He can smell him. He basically sense him, see him, or see him. He can know where he is. So Riddick's ability to stealth him is going to be out of the window. Is going to be just thrown out the window. Now, in terms of the actual fight, when they finally basically really come to blows, it's going to be a tough fight for both of them. It's going to be a tough fight for Riddick because Daredevil's just a far more skilled martial artist overall. But it's going to be a tough fight for Daredevil because Riddick's going to be the one who's going to want to survive more and more. And both these characters have shown that they're not as, especially Riddick, but Daredevil has also shown that he's more lenient with the no-kill rule. So he could actually try to kill Riddick as well. But that would actually possibly be a worse disadvantage for him trying to kill Riddick because that's going to make Riddick fight harder. The harder you fight Riddick, the harder he fights back. And that's, I think, going to be one of the defining characteristics in this fight is that who's going to want to win this fight more and who's just want to kind of live more. See, I think Daredevil's going to want to just win the fight and put down Riddick more. But Riddick is going to want to survive more than Daredevil. And survival is probably our most base instinct. So that gives Riddick a clear edge. Now, in terms of actual fighting, like I said, Daredevil's got the more skill overall, but Riddick is also physically stronger. I'm going to say that Riddick is more than likely stronger and physically tougher than Daredevil is, and he's got a higher pain tolerance too. Daredevil's pain tolerance is probably a little above average, but if Riddick somehow finds out about his weakness to hearing, weakness to noise, or any weakness in general, that's going to tip the favor of Riddick's edge. And I envision something along those lines. That's probably something that's got more likely to happen, especially if, say, we're in like some back alley and a loud noise, like say Riddick. I can see Riddick throwing a trash can at Daredevil, and then maybe it hitting something, and the noise just disrupts him enough. If that happens one or two times, Riddick could possibly pick up on that, kind of like how Bullseye picked up on it in the movie, and then utilize that against Daredevil. Because Riddick is a master of using his environment to his advantage, and he's a master of picking up on someone's weaknesses and exploiting them. Well, I wouldn't say master, but he's skilled at doing that. As in terms of actual weapons fighting, they're about equal. I mean, Daredevil's baton's more versatile, but I would honestly say Riddick is probably, especially as a killer, Riddick is more skilled with his blades in terms of knowing how to use them to lethal precision than, say, Daredevil is with only occasionally maybe killing someone, maybe. And I don't know if they've retconned that or something like that, or I haven't really read Daredevil in a long time, so I don't know if he's killed anyone in recent years. But let's just assume for the sake's sake that he occasionally does. It's far more dangerous to have someone who's skilled in killing with their weapons than someone who's not skilled with killing their weapons. So you take that all into consideration. I'm probably going to give this fight to Riddick. And the reason I'm giving this fight to Riddick is basically twofold. One, Riddick is just a tougher combatant in terms of physicality and will to survive. And two, that weakness of Daredevil's, the hearing, that's going to play a big factor into this. That's the minute Riddick picks up on the fact that really loud noises are going to affect Daredevil in a negative way, Daredevil's pretty much had it, unless he's going to, get the fuck out of there. And if that being said, Riddick might spare him if he actually does incapacitate him. But at the same time, Riddick is just the guy who's killed far more people. He's got far more people on his resume. And at the same time, when you really look at them, they're both really educated in the penal system. But I think I'd actually take the guy who's educated in the penal system who was, in prison over the guy who's just a lawyer. Because that's the guy who's seen the dark side of the penal system and knows how to work his way around the law a little bit more. So, especially if you've escaped prison after prison after prison after prison. So, in the long run, I think Riddick is going to take this fight 6 70% of the time he's going to take this fight. I'm not saying Daredevil can't beat him. Daredevil's definitely the more skilled fighter in terms of both of them. He's had more time fighting superhuman beings and just, robbers. But then again, Riddick's fought, necromongers and aliens and killed many, many men. Many, many, many men. So I'm going to give this fight to Riddick. 70% in terms of Riddick. But, Daredevil could pull out a win in a good circumstance. If again, it's also circumstances if the weakness of Daredevil is picked up by Riddick. There's a chance it could not be picked up, but in a very likely scenario where Riddick is really fighting all out and basically trying to survive, yeah, he's going to probably throw something that's going to make a really loud noise, probably loud enough that, or something's going to happen. Maybe they get too close to a car or something like that, where that loud noise is going to take effect and Daredevil's going to be disorientated and Riddick's going to pick up on that. So that's my thoughts. 70% Riddick, 30% Daredevil. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. By the way, Kevin, you're welcome. I did that video. And if you want us to review something, let us know. Put in the comments below. We'll do a review of it at some point. So, I've only got a little bit of battery power left. Good thing I'm done with the video. So, this next week's going to be Ted 2. Me and Mark will probably be catching that. We do have a review for Inside Out. It will be, I mentioned that in the last trailer review. But it will be out at some point. Mark's just backlogged at the moment. He's got stuff going on in his life. I don't blame him for being backlogged. Maybe I'll do a very short review after this actually for Inside Out just to have something up. So, see you next time. Thanks for watching.